This is Talk Sense Media. Now, today I'm going to be talking about two key stories that made the headline on the political scene. In one instance, Prime Minister Andrew Holness made a dramatic, what I would consider dangerous claim over the weekend, when he said at a political conference that the Jamaica Labour Party doesn't need an opposition. Why? Because their own supporters are the greatest critics. I'm not going to disagree with the last part of the statement, but nonetheless, they cannot be the watchdogs to see over the governance of this country. If Andrew is talking about the Jamaica Labour Party doesn't need a critic, then that is one thing. But if he's talking about the party as a governing institution, then that is a dangerous statement, and we're going to look closely at this one. Also, the opposition People's National Party, through its finance spokesman Julian Robinson, he made a grand promise to eradicate illiteracy by the end of their first term in office. 4 to 5 years. Wow. Anyway, let's look at the issues and cut through the fluff, and let's talk sense about these two stories. So let's look at Prime Minister Andrew Holness' statement that the ruling party does not need an opposition. In my view, this is a dangerous statement. And that's what usually happens on political platform. You say things to get the crowd riled up, to get your supporters riled up. Leaders have to remember that we are in a different time where technology, within minutes, it's broadcasted internationally, not just to the core audience that he's talking to, but right across the world. And so some of these statements at times can be viewed a little bit differently from when these things are picked up by international organizations and countries who are constantly watching Jamaica and what's happening in this hemisphere of the world. Probably Andrew was in the heat at the moment, talking to his people, made such a statement. But can you imagine a country where there are no opposition party, where there's no independent regulators and no watchdog organization to oversee what the government is doing? That in of itself will lead to dictatorship and abuse of power. Every single country, irrespective of how well a government is doing, needs a strong opposition party. The country needs free press and civic institutions that keep the government in check, and to be the voice for all Jamaicans, not just for the party supporters, whether it be PNP, JLP, doesn't matter. We always need somebody to oversee what the government is doing. Now, the JLP supporters going to dismiss what the Prime Minister said as just being in the moment, and it's just about fun and frolic and all of that. But nonetheless, we still have to be careful. You might support whatever words come out of your leader's mouth, but at the same time, you have to be careful about the pronouncements that are made. Sometimes things are said and it's often ignored, but we have to be careful because sometimes there might be underlying things going on deeper, and so we have to ensure that checks and balance are in place, because there's a saying that says absolute power corrupts absolutely. And Jamaica has a problem. Whether it's perceived or real, Jamaica has a corruption problem. And so the Prime Minister has to be careful about making such kind of statement, because there's always a need for some oversight to ensure that the government is kept in check. So Jamaica, just like any democratic state, need a strong opposition. The people need an opposition that won't just oppose for the sake of opposing and just jump on just about any issues in an attempt to destabilize the government and to gain power. That in of itself is also a problem. But we need an opposition that will question the decisions of the ruling party, highlight the problems, and to make sure that the government is serving everyone, not just its political base. You can't be held accountable by your supporters. You need to be held accountable by the entire country. You're representing the entire country, and you are answerable to all of them, not just your political supporters. Now let's focus on the other issue. Julian making that grand promise to eradicate illiteracy by the end of their first term. What I'll agree with Julian on is that education has to be top priority for everybody. Every child can learn, every child must learn, and I'm in full agreement with that. But that grand promise, I don't think that's achievable within 4 to 5 years. And I guess he was concerned because of the Gleaner report that highlighted that there's a serious crisis going on with nearly 70% of the grade 7 students at Pembroke Hall are reading at a grade 3 level or lower. And that might have been alarming to the PNP and the political party, probably even some of the JLP or the country in a whole. But for everybody who has been a part of the education system, we all know that there has been a long-standing problem that has never been effectively addressed by neither the PNP nor the JLP. So for Julian to make such a statement that by the end of this first term, 4 to 5 years, he's going to achieve that task. That is a monumental task that I don't see happening. What is more realistic is, let's say, 10 to 15 years. If there's a concerted effort and a thrust and money invested heavily and a mindset shift throughout all of Jamaica, then we probably can transform the education landscape in the next 15 to 20 years. But for 4 to 5 years, that's much of an undertaking. And I said this up against the backdrop that being a part of the education system for over 20 years, I kind of have an idea of the transformation that is required, and it requires more than just promises. It needs resources, reading specialists which are in short supply. We need additional classroom support, so teachers need at least an assistant to help during those classroom sessions, because a lot of the primary school classes are actually overcrowded, 40 and 50 students per class. And we have made progress with the trained teachers, so that's not so much of an issue, but the reading specialist, that is critical. And what is also crucial is the community involvement. The community must buy in if this is to work. I remember growing up, every Saturday or so we'd go to the libraries and we'd go there and we'd catch up on the reading and do additional reading. So that was what worked for us back then. Nowadays, when kids leave home on a Saturday, that's a link-up purpose, anything but. They say they're going to the library, but oftentimes they never reach, or if they reach, probably 5 minutes and then they go where they choose. So if we're going to be serious about change, we have to bring back those community programs, and we have to get parents, the civic groups and businesses to buy in. If the PNP and Julian are serious, or even the ruling party, what needs to come back is those community settings. So the community center, something is organized on a Saturday, probably provide lunch, a little drink or something of that sort, and the students comes out on a Saturday at the community center. You have persons who would assist with the reading program, perhaps teachers, community members, parents, all coming together. And that is a designated day for reading. I can see that as something that would help out the situation. But to depend on the school alone, to put programs alone in the school, that's not going to be enough to correct this problem within such a short space of time. Remember, the classrooms are already overcrowded and there are a shortage of reading specialists. But I know that parents can play a more integral role, and the community, if they are brought on board or if they get involved, which is something that needs to happen. So the statements made both by the JLP and the PNP reflect a dangerous trend in our politics, and in a sense they are ignoring the hard truths and just appealing to their supporters without the level of seriousness that these issue actually requires. So when Andrew dismisses the need for opposition, he can't be serious, because if he's serious, that means he's willing to ignore safeguards that the strong opposition should provide, and that is a safeguard that should be guaranteed to all citizens and to the country as a whole, to prevent authoritarianism, dictatorship, and all of those negative things that comes with a government or a leader feeling that he have absolute power. On the other hand, the opposition is promising universal literacy without addressing the deep issues that has been undermining the education system for years. So both of these statements needs greater attention, and our leaders need to be careful about the pronouncements that they make while on the podium addressing their core audience. Let me know what you think about what you have heard so far, and drop a comment and let me know. This is Talk Sense Media, your voice of reason in the noise.